We present perceive, predict, and plan, safe motion planning through interpretable semantic representations. The goal of an autonomy system is to take the sensor data, a map, and a high-level route and produce a safe and comfortable ride that respects the traffic rules. The traditional engineering approach to autonomy is to have separate components for perception, prediction, and planning, where each component is developed and optimized individually, leading to a waste of computation and loss of information due to low-dimensional module output. On the contrary, end-to-end learning-based methods try to generate ego trajectory directly from the input data using deep neural networks. Although simple, these models are not interpretable and hard to explain why a certain maneuver was chosen, particularly if something bad happens. First attempt to develop interpretable end-to-end autonomy focused on joint perception and prediction, allowing shared computation and propagation of uncertainty from detection to prediction. Neural Motion Planner proposed end-to-end planning method that also generates intermediate representations. However, by considering detection and prediction as separate auxiliary tasks, the planner output can be inconsistent with the PMP output and hence not safe. Similar to NMP, we are motivated by interpretable end-to-end approaches. On the contrary, it is important for the planner to directly use the outputs of perception and prediction to produce safe trajectories. Furthermore, planners' feedback to upstream tasks can cause PMP to focus more on parts of the scene that is important for the final task of driving. Another motivation of this work is to prevent information loss in PMP due to detection score thresholding and NMS. Previous PMP models predict trajectories for a detected bounding box only if its confidence score is higher than a threshold. The predictions are then passed to the planner to ensure safety. However, if the confidence score is below the threshold, an object can be completely ignored by the PMP model and not passed to the planner. This can potentially lead to a very unsafe situation. We propose end-to-end network to perceive, predict, and plan. The input are voxelized LiDAR, rasterized HT map, and the SDV route. We use a strong perception backbone that can provide rich features. We then predict a novel semantic occupancy representation. However, instead of doing object detection and then predicting an occupancy map for each traffic participant, we make our model instance-free, predicting the overall occupancy of the scene directly from the scene features without the need of thresholding or NMS. The planner uses the generated occupancy layers and outputs a safe maneuver. The entire pipeline can be trained end-to-end since all the components are differentiable with the ultimate goal of self-driving. Let's look at each component in detail. We predict the occupancy for vehicles, pedestrians, and bikes. To make the representation more interpretable, we subdivide them semantically as shown in this hierarchy. For example, vehicles are subdivided into parked, on conflicting lane, oncoming traffic, on the route, occluded, and others. This subdivision will also allow us to learn different weights for the motion planner subcosts corresponding to different subcategories. For instance, we don't need to keep the same safety buffer if we know a car is parked than if a car is in conflicting traffic. Here is the model architecture for occupancy prediction. We have a two-stream backbone that processes voxelized LiDAR, a raster map, and then respective features are trivially fused by concatenation along the channel dimension. To get smooth occupancies over time, we design a recurrent occupancy update network that predicts the residual in log probability space from the previous occupancy maps. In particular, at each time step, we take all the previous occupancy predictions and interpolate them into lower resolution, concatenate them with the backbone features, and use a small CNN with a transposed convolution to predict an upsampled occupancy at high resolution. This recurrent architecture also enables the prediction of fast vehicles that move a large distance, which would otherwise require a huge effective receptive field in the backbone. For motion planning, we use a sampling-based approach where a set of trajectories are first sampled, then evaluated using a cost function, and finally the best one is selected for execution. In order to generate maneuvers that mostly adhere to the structure of the lanes, we sample pairs of lateral and longitudinal trajectories relative to the center line of the lanes, and then convert them into bicycle model trajectories. Each trajectory is evaluated using a cost function that considers different aspects of driving. For safety, the forecasted occupancy grids are directly used to penalize trajectories that have overlap with occupied regions. Other costs include jerk and accelerations, whether the route is followed or not, and keeping safe distance from the boundaries of the lane and the road. At the end, we select the trajectory that has the minimum aggregated cost for execution. Note that the parameters of the aggregation function are learned jointly with the rest of the model. The training involves two losses. For semantic occupancy, we use the cross entropy between the ground truth distribution and the predicted distribution. The planner is trained with max margin loss. For training, we use 42 hours of driving data, which contains challenging scenarios in urban environment. We use a number of planners as baseline. Adaptive cruise control tries to follow a detected lead vehicle at safe distance. Behavior cloning directly predicts the trajectory waypoints of the SDV from the LiDAR input and rasterized map. Neuromotion Planner predicts the cost volume that is used to evaluate sample trajectories. And lastly, Learnable PLT uses the predicted trajectories of detected actors to cost and select the safe trajectory in a non-end-to-end fashion. As metrics, we use L2 distance between the human trajectory and the planner output, collision rate at different planning horizons, jerk and lateral acceleration, and progress along the route. Here are the results of our open loop experiments where the current plan is assumed to be executed for the planning horizon without replanning. As the results show, our planner is able to plan trajectories that are much safer, leading to 40% less collisions at 5 seconds compared to the baseline. Similarly, the output trajectories are more similar to the human demonstrations. We also conducted ablations experiments to compare the use of occupancy versus trajectories as prediction output and planner input. The experiments showed that the use of occupancy yields to better safety and imitation. Also, training perception prediction jointly with the planner helps improve the performance. Here are a few examples of open loop execution. The boxes show the ground truth objects, and the solid black rectangle is the SDV with planned trajectory. Occupancies with different semantics are shown with different colors as indicated on the right legend. Here is an example of predicting multimodal occupancy for the bus in front of the SDV. Next is an example of unprotected left turn maneuver. And finally, a right turn where the planner yields the pedestrians crossing the road. We also conduct closed loop experiments, since in open loop, the new information is not used to revise the plans. For example, consider the scenario where the vehicle starts with low speed and then accelerates and passes the intersection with high speed. When planning in open loop, the predicted occupancy mostly reflects the observed low speed of the vehicle, and hence the planner selects a trajectory that turns ahead of the other vehicle. However, evaluating this open loop plan leads to collision with ground truth. In closed loop simulation, the planner may initially decide on a turning trajectory. But with new information, the occupancy forecasts are revised and another trajectory is selected that is safer and consistent with the new prediction. We use our closed loop simulator, which is powered by our state-of-the-art LiDAR sim. At each iteration, a point cloud is generated and passed to the autonomy model. Then the state of the world is updated using the planned trajectory and the actor models. The scenarios contain two of the orange non-compliant actors shown in the figure, initialized with random velocity and position along the lane, leading to 80 scenarios. Here are the results of our model and the end-to-end PLT. The results show that our occupancy-based prediction and planning is more cautious, leading to less accelerations and jerk, and hence safer. In summary, we presented a novel end-to-end autonomy model that is able to generate instance-free semantic occupancy forecasts and plan a safe trajectory for the ego vehicle.